Welcome to What We See, conversations across indie education with microschools, homeschool families, and hybrid programs about what they're actually doing, how they know it's working, and what the metrics miss. All right, I am here with Justine Wilson. This is an exciting conversation for today's episode, or this week's. I don't know, the cadence of this is still weekly. Having a lot of these conversations. And it is awesome to have you here, Justine. Curious and Kind Education in Sarasota, Florida. Justine and I have gotten to know each other a little bit over the past few years, which has been awesome. And I'd love to just, have you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're building and how you got here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. It's been a fun few years getting to know you, and your support with the agile learning, self-directed education stuff has really propelled Curious and Kind from the very, very beginning. So I was a conventional school educator, teacher, and principal for 17 years. And I just found myself saying and doing things that were like very systemic and one size fits all. And I was seeing that it wasn't serving all kids. And I just had to take a break. And I knew there was something different out there. I knew I could offer kids something different. I took 2 years to align my head and my heart. That's when I found Agile Learning Centers and self-directed education as a whole world out there, forest schooling. I fell in love with that. I knew I loved nature, but I learned all about forest school as an approach. So in those 2 years, I merged the concepts and moved to Sarasota, Florida, where I opened Curious and Kind Education. And we started with just a small handful of kids, and 3 years later, we just completed our third school year with 100 kids on our roster over 3 school year programs, even though we're serving homeschoolers. And then we have a summer camp program, and next year we're launching an after school program for conventional schoolers to get outside. So we've been responding to the community that has just been really craving something different for their kids' learning journey. So it's been a wild ride.
You, this is just your third year that you finished?
Yeah, we just finished
And
our third year.
there wasn't a significant, nothing preceded that with Curious and Kind or a previous version
Um,
of it? I just
I
keep feel like you've
taught,
been on your third year for 3 years.
yeah, I know. No, no, no,
I'm like, you're really
no.
only 3 years old.
I taught nature classes through Tinkergarten previous to
Okay.
that. And then I launched as Curious and Kind with a pilot just a few months
Okay.
before I called it our first year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was
But
just
I mean, your
doing.
growth's been pretty tremendous. You have like
Mhm.
60 some kids in the program this year, or?
Yeah, we have 60 kids in our forest school, and 11 in our teen program, and then 30 in our early years program. That's like the nature play class. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I have more questions about Curious and Kind, but I feel like you're underselling your background a little bit here, and maybe
Mm.
you're just trying to be kind about the time and be efficient. But there's a theme that I've seen in some of these conversations. It's like either former educators. It's usually former. Not former. It's usually educators who are in some sort of conventional school situation. Not always, or mothers, parents who are like, oh, this is not going to work for my kids. And so it's either one of those, or even in a lot of cases, both of those. But the people that are leading, that are kind of like leaving conventional schools, starting
Yeah.
these micro schools, starting these programs, they're not just like random people who've never thought about education before, who have no
Right.
this is
Yeah.
like this is
Mm.
coming from a like there's a catalyst from creative professionals that need space to actually do their work creatively and
Mhm.
professionally, and not just
Yeah.
be someone that follows a bunch of directions handed down from the principal from the superintendent from the district or whatever. So tell me a little bit more, just like, because you've been all over the world, you've taught in so many different
Yeah.
environments and led schools in different environments. So like tell us a little bit about that journey briefly, but then also like what are some of the like was there one moment? Was there a bunch of moments? But like
Mhm.
how'd you get from that? How'd you get from like being a
Mhm.
principal in, the Middle East to with a huge school, an international school to I'm going to start a forest school where kids are like we don't teach any academics and kids are going to play outside all day.
Yeah, when you put it like that, that it looks like a huge leap. But if
Yeah.
thanks for asking the question to get a little deeper because going back, I started my educator's journey as a nature school teacher for Nature's Classroom in Ohio, and then for LA County's Outdoor Science School out in California. And I just wanted kids longer for just more than a week. And so I then went to teacher's school and got my master's in education from Antioch. And
Mm.
if your listeners know anything about Antioch, they know that it's not a conventional type of training
Yeah.
for anyone in any field. So I took at Antioch, getting my master's in education, I took courses on integrated education or transdisciplinary education, where we would put on a circus, but we would be learning how to embed and teach and authentically emerge um, concepts from math to entrepreneurship to writing and arts. And so taking courses like circus or sheep to shawl or design your own like farm. So I designed like farm to table. So I was creating like that. So in my mind, that's the kind of educator, that's the only kind of educator I had ever wanted to be once I set my sights on being an educator.
Mm.
Um, and then I got my first job in a 5th grade classroom, and I was in a small rural district in Colorado with big, gorgeous windows that looked out over the mountains, 14,000 foot peaks, and I just thought, wow, this is amazing. And there was no curriculum that I had to follow except for a really, really bad dot matrix printed math curriculum that came with like this many, you can't even see my hands, like this many worksheets to give out to the kids. That was the only thing I had to do. Everything else I got to invent, which I loved,
That's
but it was also exhausting.
mm.
But as a first year teacher, I had all the energy for it. But I want to tell you about Patrick. He came in my classroom, and when the other teachers saw him on my roster, they were all like, oh, I was the only 5th grade teacher. So, of course, I had Patrick because he was going to 5th grade. And everyone's like, oh. And he came in and he cried under the desk every morning. Every morning. He'd come in and he'd just go under the desk and cry. Um, and so, obviously, as much as my space was different, it wasn't different enough for him, right? It was still a system. He still had to conform to these things, even though my classroom was integrated and child led as much as it could have been in that environment, right? Um, so then fast forward, my husband and I wanted to explore the world, but we were making teacher salaries. So we then had to become international teachers. So we taught in Egypt for a few years, went to Brazil, taught there for a few years, where I was promoted through through the ranks to principal, um, which I loved because I got to bring a lot of innovation to that school and really got them like thinking differently and more progressively about education. And then I took a job in Doha, Qatar as a building principal of 750 kids, and it was very conventional. Be more, I thought it would be more progressive. And then COVID happened, which just, tailspun everybody. And that's when I was like, okay, I have to like be done in this setting. The final straw was a 4th grader running down the hallway screaming he hates this place, and he did that consistently, like on a weekly basis. He was definitely on the spectrum, and the system, we were trying to put him in a box and just make him stop running instead of being like, what do you really need? So again, like from the first story of Patrick to that final story in Doha, there were just like kids all along the journey that were just like signaling to me like, the system, the schedule, the size, the everything is not meant for me.
Yeah.
Um, and so now I finally have a chance to listen to those kids, right? And
Yeah.
create a space where we're very low demand. Kids get to design their day. We co-plan it as a community every day. Um, so they can be as loud as they need because they're outside. They can also be as quiet as they need and sit in the garden and watercolor if that's what they'd like to spend their time doing and observing tiny little plants and animals in the creek. Or if they need to do the big body stuff, they climb the trees and they build forts and they get to design their days. So there's no more running and crying and screaming. Um, I don't like this or I don't want to be here because they're in charge.
Amazing. So, okay, so the threads were working outdoors with kids for a week and being like, I want to see them. I want to more than a week, so I'll become a teacher, and then Antioch and like that building that kind of foundation of like, you know, learning and everything's interdisciplinary. Everything is, like all the learning
Mhm.
that happens when you're connected to something meaningful, creative projects, and then Patrick, and then yeah, so all these different things kind of add up, and so then the pandemic happens, and you're like, you know what, it's time to just like
Learn back.
it's time to
Yeah.
do come back to this,
Mhm.
near family, I guess, and then also like to do the work that you feel like it's kind of been all adding up to.
Yeah.
Amazing. So Curious and Kind is serves homeschool families, right? So you're not a school.
For
You're
now.
and Florida has an evolving, you know, landscape of definitions for what is a school and what isn't, like a lot of states these days.
Yeah.
So, you're how many days a week are you open, and like most people are coming how
Yeah.
often? And
Yeah, so our flagship programs of our forest school and our teen program, I would say we're a micro school
okay.
where homeschoolers choose as part of their educational experience. So kids will come for 1, 2, or 3 days a week
Mhm.
um, to the forest school or the teen program. Um, and then it's a drop-off program, so so we're working in partnership with families.
And so that structure where the families are homeschoolers and they use you, would would you say it's pretty significant in terms of it allows you to just be like, this is the part that we do.
Yeah,
We're not, going to be
correct.
able to handle everything for your family. We don't do a
Right.
lot of the things that we know are still important to people.
Yeah,
But these are the things we do. And so you can just really kind of focus in on that. So,
right. Yeah, I like to share with families that we're a micro school, meaning like we're small, we're intentional, and what we do best is social emotional learning. So every child that comes into our program will for sure be expected to solve problems that they have, whether that's like a building problem or a social problem. Um, and so when we coach them and work with them and are side by side, but also give them as much space as they need. And we have about 10 words that we value that we work throughout the school year that are social emotional words such as joy and collaboration and consent, communication, community, all of those things. Um, and then we also tell parents that the other thing that will happen is that emergent learning will happen. So when your child's very interested in the creek, they'll get to spend as much time as their curiosity demands of them in the creek and will learn about the fish and the plants and the pH of the creek and the trash in the creek, where it all comes from, where it all goes, all of those types of things. And we have a fish tank in the library of our building that supports us that we put our captives in from the creek so we can like watch how their behavior is influenced in how they're eating all the little tiny fish we put in there. That's just an example of an emergent ongoing project that the kids naturally engage in and just benefit and learn so much from.
Yeah.
But we don't teach explicit academics. There's only two times you'll ever see everyone all sitting down together, and that's at the morning meeting where we co-plan and the end of the day meeting where we reflect and read a story. Other than that, like there's no explicit instruction where kids have to come and sit down and learn this one thing. It would be offered to them like if you want to learn about the water ecology with the ecologist, you're welcome to come to this class. Otherwise, you can do other things.
Yeah. Very cool. So those words you mentioned, do you have a name for them? Because it sounds to me like that's actually that's the curriculum of Curious in Kind. Is
Yeah,
like
we're calling it the curious and kind way.
okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So
I
it's
use
all of
curriculum, in quotes and like more like the
yeah,
John Taylor Gatto hidden curriculum kind of way, but like these
yeah.
are the things the values, the things that like kids are actually learning by embodiment, right? Or like
Yeah,
direct
and it's
experience.
the approach that we're using as the facilitators, right? Combining a lot of the SDE with the social emotional learning, making it very explicit with that like nonviolent communication from Marshall. So we've like put all of that into what we call the curious and kind way.
All right, so let's just get into like what learning looks like then. I mean, we're touching on it here, but like in your space, like what's it and you've mentioned, the creek and the nature exploration. What if I walk in on a typical morning at Curious and Kind, like what am I gonna see? What's happening?
Yeah, so when kids are first come, they have about 15 minutes to just free play on the field and greet their friends, and there's families chatting, and it just looks kind of like a social party
Hmm.
for the first like 15 to 20 minutes. And then we caca, then the kids all come and we sit in our stump circle.
This is an actual sound you make.
Yeah, that's much
Okay.
louder. Um, and then we all sit at the stump circle or on the mat and we talk about the word of the week and we co-plan our day. So it'll look like, for example, the last week of school, one of the kids wanted to have a cookout. So we planned that. We'd made the menu the week before. So a cookout was on an offering. So anyone that wanted to help cook the hamburgers and hot dogs and french fries over the fire and start the fire, those kids
Mhm.
were welcome and they were popping in and out as that was all happening. Um, and then other kids, so cookout was an offering, and capture the flag was another offering. So you would see kids participating in activities that they chose and moving freely amongst them. So, like when the game capture the flag ends or you don't want to play anymore, then you're welcome to come over and check out what's happening at the cookout, right? And flip a burger if if you're interested in that, right? And help out. Um, so really that's just the like tiny smidge of the diversity of things that happen at Curious and Kind, but you'd probably also see someone in the mud kitchen, maybe playing by themselves or with others. You might see kids asking or hanging the rope swing that we have. That's very popular. Someone's probably always doing some form of drawing or painting. Um, and or maybe playing in the kinetic sand. That's always on offer. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, it's just diversity. You'd see like the facilitators all have walkie-talkies and will say like, you know, Barrett wants to change activities and move across campus, and Barrett comes up and he's like, "Hey, Justine, I'm gonna go check out the cookout across campus," and be like, "All right, hey,
Mhm.
Jack, Barrett's coming over to the cookout," and Jack's like, "Okay, cool." So
So
kids don't,
you're organizing yourselves as educators and facilitators to basically hold this container where kids can have
yeah,
that type of choice and
aut-
autonomy,
mhm.
creativity, which really,
Exactly.
fundamentally changes your role as educators in this sense. Like from,
Yeah.
I have information that you need to like I'm gonna help pull a space where like you can, you know, you can what how would you
Explore.
just yeah.
I would say that they're, like, exploring themselves and their capabilities, they're discovering all sorts of things that they can do, right? That they might not have known that they can do or things that they're interested in that they didn't know they were interested in. Kids are learning about themselves in a very authentic way, as well as the world around them, right? That's
Yeah.
not being imposed by any mandates or, I don't know, like authority. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I love the gathering around the morning and then a kid being like, I want like we should have a cookout at the end of the year. And it's like, okay, and then like having the experience of like planning that, collaborating with friends, all the learning that happens inside of that you can tease out, but then also it's the like it's not even that stuff so much as it's like this experience of like I'm somebody who can create what I want in my own
Mhm.
life. I'm not
And
a passenger on a train that someone else
yeah,
is in charge of. Like I think there should be a cookout at
exactly.
my school for my community, and I can go from 0 to 1 and make that happen. Like, yeah, there's something that about these spaces that are
Mhm.
allowing that to happen and facilitating that experience for kids that to me is like that's where
Mhm.
it's at, right?
And honestly, it's evidenced because I mean, it's evidenced in so many ways, but my niece is part of our school now, and she was at the cookout, and her dad, I haven't even told her dad this, who's my brother, but her dad is kind of a chef. I mean, like level of chef. And she was eating the hamburger and she's like, "This is the best cookout ever." And like I've been to some of cookouts her dad's had and they're really good. But the reason why she thought it was the best cookout ever is because it was hers. It
Yeah.
wasn't anyone else's, right? So the hamburger just tasted better because she made it, right? Like
Yeah.
it was her idea, it was her friend's idea, and she got to like be a part of every decision that was that was a part of the experience, and that just
Yeah.
made it actually taste better, right?
Yeah.
And when she said that, I was like, it's not the food. Right?
Right.
It's the experience, it's the ownership, it's the autonomy that she felt, it's the authenticity, it's like all of those good things is what she's actually tasting.
How you're seeing yourself
Yeah.
in the world and what you're capable of, that experience. Like we talk about learning, we think of it so much about like information, skills,
Mhm.
like new capabilities, and that's all,
Mhm.
but it's like your sense of who you are and what you can do and your confidence or your self-image is like kind of the container that like
It
the
all
ultimate
fits in.
capacity, right? You
Yeah.
can't if that's not wide and big and
Mhm.
expansive, then like you can't fit knowledge, facts, skills, or anything into it. So
Yeah.
it's like if you can't start there, if we're not
Yeah.
starting there, what are we really getting? So
Right.
anyway, I get
No, I
excited
no,
about these
that's
ideas
like
when they
what
come out,
it
right?
it's totally true. It's like really when I'm thinking about like when I was spent those 2 years between being the principal in Doha, Qatar to being, the founder of Curious and Kind, those 2 years existed in peeling back all the layers of like what is really important, what is the most important, what do I really want to offer, like what's the foundation of creating a kinder, more just society, right? And the foundation is with who you are as a human. And so being curious as like the outward journey of like learning about the world and then being kind as that inner journey of like who are you and how do you fit in and
Mhm.
how do you relate to others, right? Like that's like that is the box that
Right,
that whole all of life fits in,
right.
and it's
Like
like
math and
messy.
reading and language
Right,
arts and
exactly.
science, like, right, exactly.
Yeah, it's the
Fits into
I get I don't want to say it's a box. We're not in a box, right? Nobody likes the
well, it's
box.
the container, it's the membrane, it's the right, it's the
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you. Okay, cool. So amazing. Let me just throw some of these questions at you that I've been asking
Okay.
folks because let's kind of
Oh
weave this
gosh.
into the theme of these conversations. But if you had to translate, what your learners, students, kids are actually, doing into like a report card or a test score, what would be lost in that process, or maybe another way of saying it is like what's
Mm.
something you've witnessed in a learner and in a kid's experience in your program that you wish more people could see.
Um, I just got a text message from a mom of a girl that's been in our program for 3 years. And text message sounds like trite, but it was really like a thoughtful card, right? Piece of post.
Mhm,
I felt like I
mhm,
was reading a card. Um, she just shared how her daughter has um a genetic condition that has like creates her ligaments to be super stretchy. And I've known this about her and I've known this condition. I've known she's had it since the day one, but her mom was just reminding me and thanking me because her daughter is stronger now. And this is like the last 3 years has been the most like physical therapy and also training her to advocate for herself or allowing her space and teaching her how, right, to advocate for herself and what her body needs. Previously in school, she'd have to carry her backpack, but carrying almost anything puts like stress on those ligaments and stretches them out. And her condition is such that when her ligaments stretch, they don't boing back like the rest of us do without this condition. And there's no way I could put that on a report card. Like she couldn't even trick or treat. Her mom wrote in the text message, she couldn't trick or treat without a wheelchair ever until last year. This past
mhm.
October, she trick or treated and ran all night with minimal pain the next day. And like you're not going to write about someone's like ability to trick or treat on a on a
Yeah,
report card, right? But like
there's no current metric that's capturing that.
no, exactly. But her and she was also the girl that came in asking if she could get a drink of water, asking if she could stand up, like, 'cause she wanted to knit instead of
Mhm.
sitting down for so long, she wanted to, like, walk around and knit at the same time,
Yeah,
and now she's leaving as, like, a stronger, more confident, um, person that's gonna be going into 7th grade in a small private school.
mhm.
And that journey would not have been able to be documented. Her physical and social emotional growth was just has just been irreplaceable. Like her mom believes no other environment would have been able to help her in that way, which has given her that foundation, right? Um,
Yeah,
so I think about her, um, that text message just like had me in tears, you know. The other thing that's not on report cards is, the peace of mind that parents have of putting their kids in an environment where they're completely trusted, and respected, right? That's not on a report card. No one no one ever grades the teachers, right, on, like, how they treat the
do
kids.
you see this as a human being or like a candidate to become a human being?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I know.
yeah,
Um The teachers are always the one judging the other people, right? Whereas, like,
right,
in our
right.
environment, like, we're all, working together as a community to live our best lives, and so that, those types of things aren't on report cards.
Nice. All
Mm.
right, cool. Well, there's like three or four things I wanted to say and keep like about the last thing you share with the, the girl with strengthening herself, but we're getting to time here,
Yeah,
so I'm gonna cut myself off and just go to my final question that I ask
okay.
every guest. Um, so yeah, the dominant story in our
Mm.
world about learning is that it's that it happens in classrooms, um, and
Mm.
and that it's measurable, like we talked about. So if that's not your story, then like what's your story about learning?
Learning happens everywhere, all the time, in every moment, like, in every interaction, right? You have the opportunity to learn about anything. you want to learn about. And in this conversation, like I'm even learning more about the program that I run, like from the questions you're asking and the reflection that's happening, right? Um, yeah, learning and life are like synonymous. Um, and if you choose to see it that way, right? And so I think once you've opened up that perspective, then like life is really fun. You know? You get
Yeah,
to just explore and dream and create possibilities for yourself and for other people, and um yeah, just being on life's journey, seeing learning as life is just um like so different than the conventional way of seeing learning or education. Where somewhere you go and something you do um, in this place, but really learning is everywhere, like possible everywhere. Um, I guess that's what we do. That's what we do at Curious and
that's what
Kind.
we
That's
do.
what we're encouraging other people to do. That's what this whole, I think, alternative education movement is about just exploring new ways of seeing learning and education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Justine Wilson, for
Yeah.
joining me for this conversation. It's great to chat and to have you on. So thanks so much.
Yeah. Thanks so much.